Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. This is Tom O'Connor from intensely under hurricane pressure in New Orleans, Louisiana. We have not one, not two, not three, but five tropical depressions heading towards us. Two of them are actually in the Gulf of Mexico as we talk. So by the time you listen to this, you could be getting a slight gurgling sound from the Gulf Coast.
It's always exciting by you, Tom.
That's right. It's always something going on down here. And as always, of course, I'm joined with by Rachi Messing, who is with us today from my old haunts, Baltimore, Maryland. Right? You're actually in country today.
I am in country today for a change. We needed to change things up a little bit.
That's right. Yeah. And how are things in Charm City?
Charm City is muggy as usual, but as expected for this time of year. But it's everything's good. Everything's good. There's a general feeling I found of like things are moving up. That things aren't as bad as they've been for the last few months. So I think there's optimism, which is nice to see.
Good. So, yeah. Excellent. And we are both very pleased today to be joined by our special guest, an old friend of mine, an acquaintance of both of us for years, Mary Pat Poteet.
Hello.
Joining us. Mary Pat, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
And you are independent consulting these days?
I am. My day is divided up amongst a couple of different projects that I'm working on. I'm also working with my brother-in-law who has a distillery and restaurant in Portland, Oregon, Shine Distillery and Grill.
We are absolutely going to have to dig in on that one.
Okay.
That's the topic of discussion for today.
There we go. So.
Yeah.
Well,
happy to talk about it anytime.
Before we get to the alcohol part of the conversation, Mary Pat, for those listening in who don't know you or may not know your background, tell us how you got into this wacky business of ours. What's your history?
A very planned out, thoughtful approach. I got my degree in sports medicine.
There you go.
So,
that sounds
it's one of those things where, you think you're going one way and you go someplace else. I actually took a job.
Excuse me, but where was that now? Are you from the Northwest originally?
I am originally from the Northwest, but I got my degree in San Diego from San Diego State.
Great program.
Yeah. So it's funny that I ended up living back down in San Diego for quite a few years. I didn't think that I'd move back, but there I was. So
right.
But I started working I did some temp work for a law firm in Portland, and then my brother-in-law's brother was a partner at Stoll Reeves, and he's like, why don't you just come over here, and we'll get you on, you can make some photocopies because that's the big thing that was needed then. In my first 2 weeks, nothing but photocopying. That was so much fun.
Copy label copy.
But it turns out I was one of the few people that was not afraid of the computer. And I made it a mission to keep people from creating indexes in Word or WordPerfect.
Okay.
I said, at least put it in Excel. And then, I started discovering some
novel idea. I mean,
absolutely. It killed me. What really drove me crazy though is they would give me an 80-page WordPerfect chart index, and they didn't understand why I kept corrupting. I'm like, well, because it's not a spreadsheet,
right?
So made me crazy. So we did a lot of different applications. The thing is that a lot of the paralegals would have 18 different, applications. And so no one could actually work on their case. I think it was job security or something. I don't know. But I finally got the firm to use one specific, that was the goal, to get them to use one. We had concordance and summation. That's when I met Tom.
Yes, and I told the story on another interview a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember the first time we met?
Yeah, I do.
We'll do a little Rashomon now. Tell your version of the story.
I believe that I do know that I had called Summation and said, either you get someone here that knows how to work this, or we're gonna just pack it back up in the box and send it right back to you. And they said, you should talk to this guy named Tom.
Yeah, back in the day,
Tom
Summation was just
down.
hard.
Oh, GPF every 5 minutes, but God, those were the good old days.
And I was living in Seattle.
Tom.
I'm sorry.
Hmm? I mean, weren't those the good old days? The GPFs every 5, just the GPFs.
Oh, yeah.
Is what I was talking.
Well, I remember that I was living in Seattle, and as I recall, there was a Seattle office of Stoll Reeves at that time, right? Or maybe over in Bellevue. There was a satellite office.
No, there was one downtown.
It was downtown.
Downtown Seattle.
Okay. And as you said, when you just mentioned a minute ago, different people were using different things. My recollection was that the folks in Seattle weren't always on the same page as you as to where they were going with applications.
Oh, not even close. Not even. It was at dealing with multiple offices with such different personalities, and and it did prepare me Pillsbury, but it was interesting because we also had an office in Boise, and in Boise they were just like, we don't know what we're doing. So just tell us what we're doing.
Yes,
I remember that.
Give us some direction.
Yeah. So you went from there to Pillsbury. I remember that.
Yes, and that's actually when I met Browning. I met him about 2 weeks after I started, and somehow got talked into doing a talk at a conference, and I'd never done that before. And it was like, Browning immediately tried to get me to come work for him at Greg Carey, and I'm like, well, I think it's kind of bad form. I just moved down to San Francisco. I don't think I should just immediately, they paid for me to move down here. Probably bad form. So
give me a week at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it took me 3 years, and then I moved on to DLA, Piper, Rudnick, Gray Carey.
So was it Gray Carey when you moved, or had they?
No, they had
morphed by then?
Merged. Yeah, they had just started. I got there in, I think, the beginning of April, but I interviewed in December, and so they were just getting ready to do this big merger. And so it had already been announced and everything, and I met with Don Jaycox, and he's trying to merge. It's like, okay, how are we going to do this? All of the crazy stuff that comes with merging, and not only just with another national firm, but international. So that was interesting.
Yes. It's funny you should say that about him asking you to speak, though. I met Browning when I moved to San Diego, and it was Gray Carey at that point was not even the largest firm in San Diego. And Browning and I met at a little tech conference over at the Hotel Del. There was one that was, they did it somebody did it every 4th of July because people would come in, and he and I bumped into each other. And it's also where I met Neil Oresti, who was one of the speakers then. Yep. And anyways, several years later, Browning and I became great friends, of course, but several years later, I was on the board of the ABA Tech Show, and I'm walking around there one morning, and a local speaker in Chicago got deathly ill. I suspect from one of those lobby meetings the evening before that Rocky just what Browning later came to refer to as the Mary Pat Poteet social hour.
I'm thinking a lot of people have to think I'm a huge lush.
Yes. Well,
it's fine.
Once we zeroed in on something to focus on, we went with it. But anyways, this guy canceled. He called, and he just was deathly. Actually, the secretary called, and I'm trying to. It was on my track, and so I'm walking around trying to find somebody to fill in for this guy. It wasn't a subject that I felt really comfortable with. And here comes Browning walking down the hall. I said, "Hey, Browning, Browning, you wanna speak on a panel later this morning? Say, it's like 11:30. He goes, yeah, sure, of course. And we're talking and blah, blah, blah. He walks away and I get about, I don't know, 30, 40 feet down the corridor. And I hear this, Tom, Browning, Tom. Brownie comes running down. He goes, what the hell am I talking about?
Right.
He could talk about anything.
That's what I said was, well, you shouldn't have volunteered without asking that question first. I'll reveal your subject to you when you take the stage.
Get up there. Yeah, please enter this door and
yeah. Pick a
Just
subject.
sit
Any
down.
subject.
We'll throw some questions at you.
that's awesome.
So then you ended up back down in San Diego.
I ended back down in San Diego where I got my great degree in sports medicine. So, that's full circle, right?
Yeah. Loved to, we lived there for a while. Our son Seamus is a big time skateboarder. So he still thinks of that as his time in heaven because
I
it was,
bet.
it's skateboard central. In fact, one of the big parks where he played Little League baseball, I remember I coached one of the teams and it was right out at the park that was at the junction of the 5 and what's the one that comes in, the 8 or the 10 that comes in east-west?
There's 8. There's the 5. Yeah, it would be the 8 that goes east to west.
East-west, right.
Yeah.
So there is a big park there, and there were all these Little League fields. And then in a sign of the times, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, Seamus and I was doing a conference someplace, and I said, hey, you want to go to San Diego for a couple of days? He said, sure. And we drove up, we were looking around, and that entire complex of Little League fields had been replaced by a skateboard park. I mean, a massive outdoor skateboard park, and his eyes just lit up like, oh,
yeah,
I need to move back here. Yeah. So yeah, great city.
So Mary Pat, you were at DLA for how many years? Because I met you when you were at DLA.
Yeah, for 5 years.
I was able to enter into this picture. So
yeah, it was 5 years. I started in 2005 and left in 2010.
Okay. Cool.
And that's when I started the consulting side of my business. So
yeah, and so you've been on the consulting side now for 10 years, basically. Yes. At first, how was that switching from big law firm? I mean, now biggest law firm, but at the time I think they were in just the top 5. They weren't the biggest at the time, but still huge law firm structure, everything about that, and then all of a sudden being like, okay, now I can do what I want. So
it was scary. It was, because I really didn't, understand how it all worked. And actually I did spend about 1.5 years working with a software company. And it was called Riverglass, and no one understood what the heck Riverglass was. But it was the software that was basically would help dig into the help you find information out in your data. Think of a river of data, and Riverglass was to make it transparent or something. I don't know. Anyway, that first off, that experience gave me insight into what it takes to create software, and it also made me apologize to Andresaja for all of the demands that I would make when I was at DLA.
It's a little different when you're on the other side, isn't it?
Oh, I'm like, I am so sorry. I had no idea, but you guys made it happen. So, good job.
Yep.
So then I worked for project leadership for a couple of years and really learned the ins and outs of consulting from a really good guy, Dan, who really explained what the difference was between what I did at DLA and what I needed to do for clients. And I actually loved it because I could go into a client's office and figure out what's going wrong and what they need to do. And I leave the place better than I found it, and they're all happy. And, so I just kind of zoom in and then zoom out. It's great. Yep. I don't have to deal with the politics nearly as much, which I loved because, anybody who knows me knows I'm not a real political person when it comes to dealing with, office politics.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's and ever since I've just really enjoyed working with clients. I really like discovering what's wrong and how can I make it better.
That's awesome. So what kind of projects are you working on now? Like what's the general business targets that you're going after?
I work pretty much the entire EDRM, but right now my projects, I've got one that is really helping them just figure out the best way to deliver e-discovery services internally,
Okay.
but also
On
using
the corporate side.
this is for a law firm.
Okay.
And then I'm working with a service provider in some of their training materials.
Cool.
So it just depends on what the clients need at the time.
And that's probably, I mean, that variety, I know that's what I thrive on. Like, being able to get something different every day. You never know exactly what you're going to be walking into. And, that's a lot of fun. So cool. Awesome. Yeah. So are you from we'll get to the other side with your brother-in-law, but on the consulting side, are you right now you're working alone or you're working with others?
I'm the project with the law firm, it's just me. And I'm working with their director of IT because they really don't have anything internal. Mm-hmm. And then the other project I'm working with another consultant and actually Joy Moreau.
Sure.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Yeah. Oh, Joy and I go way back. Almost as far back as Tom and I go.
Yeah, we had Joy on probably about a
weeks ago. Yeah.
In
fact, that might have been when I told the story about Stoll Reeves and you and I meeting. I think Joy might have mentioned your name. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So very cool.
Yeah, no,
very
Joy.
Cool.
I love working with Joy. I mean, Joy is such a she puts the Energizer Bunny to shame.
Yeah.
She is always going, constant movement, and she's always thinking about different connections and everything. She's a really good example of who I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah. So okay, now let's get to what's important.
Yes.
Distillery. What? So
it was my brother-in-law's dream for for more than 20 years to open a distillery and grill. It's not something that you see with a distillery on site. There's only not even a dozen of them across the U.S. Most places they'll have a distillery, but it's off site. This is a beautiful distillery. All the bronze and the copper and steel and everything. It's so you can walk by this beautiful still in the restaurant, and all of the tabletops are repurposed wood from the building. The building had been a welding shop, and it had a fire, and so it destroyed the inside of the building. But as they were pulling all this wood out, they're, just putting it on a pile. And John's like, what are you doing with that? They're like, oh, well, we're going to take it to the dump. And we're like, and he's like, no, I'll take that. So he starts pulling all this wood. These tables are gorgeous wood. Just, oh my gosh. It's basically wood and steel. And it's an amazing place. And the booze, very tasty stuff. Just a really nice, one of the biggest sellers is our agave.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. We've got two different types. We've got our blue Cascade and then our golden Cascade, and it is amazing.
So are we talking tequila here, whiskey?
Yeah, we can't call it tequila because it's made here. Yeah. So it's, but it's basically tequilas, and the margarita. Amazing. One of my favorite drinks there. So
whenever we can all travel, we're all heading to Portland, is what you're saying.
I was going to say, this is in downtown Portland.
This is actually, it's in North Portland.
Okay.
It's on Williams Avenue.
And what's it called?
It is. Pardon?
What's it called?
It's called Shine Distillery and Grill.
Shine. Okay.
And we've got this rooftop patio that is amazing. And of course, everybody wants to sit out there during the summer, except when the air is filled with smoke.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
But we had a lot of challenges to begin because we had just opened last July, not this past, July of 2019.
Right.
And so we hadn't even gone a full year and had to deal with COVID. And so we had to shut down, and we had to, we ended up we were one of the first in the country to change from distilling, making booze to making hand sanitizer.
Right.
And so we started providing hand sanitizer to, all these at risk and, folks that really needed to have it, dealing with homeless and the first responders, and so medical personnel, fire departments, things like that.
Yep.
And so that actually brought us a lot of publicity. John and our general manager were on the Don Lemon show on CNN.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That's awesome. Good for you.
Got calls from all over the country, all over the world, frankly, to, what are you guys doing? How are you doing it? What's the recipe? What's the process you're following? All that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And that actually saved the restaurant because we did takeout for, a couple of weeks, but then all of our kitchen staff wanted to quarantine. And of course, it was also they got a lot more money on unemployment than they did
without any tips,
actually coming in and working. So, but it also, we weren't getting enough orders to take out. So so the hand sanitizer actually saved the business. So
good.
Wow.
Good.
Yeah. So
if you can just figure out a way to do the e-discovery consulting in the distillery together, like what's the, if you could come up with
I'll tell you what, I do some work
Tom,
while I'm at the distillery.
I thought that all e-discovery is done while drunk. Is that not the It seems that
I told you never to say that out loud.
Sorry, I'm forgetting my lessons.
Nothing good happens. And as Browning would say, nothing good happens after 9 o'clock. Nothing good happens after that third drink.
Yeah.
No.
So how's COVID impacted from a consulting perspective? Do you see, because I've been hearing from a lot of people that there's actually more opportunities, more requests, but just wondering for you, what are you seeing?
Well, the consulting projects themselves have actually slowed down because, the focus of the law firms that I've worked with has changed drastically to, okay, now we need to be able to make sure that everybody can work from home. So, so like my client in Denver, their focus was, I'm working with the director of IT, and so her bandwidth was really taken up with who needs help in getting stuff set up in their homes, making sure that they all had the right equipment and all of that sort of stuff. So it is just really starting to get back on track since March. So that's, good 6 months. And so I didn't do a lot of work for them, until, recently I finally started back working on this project. So COVID's really kind of put the brakes on in work, which is, thankfully I'm working with Shine, so that helps with,
paying the bill.
Yeah, exactly.
That's been my experience as well. Our typical litigation projects have really just slowed to a crawl. And we're just starting to see local courts down here are just starting to open up. There's a couple of trials that are going to go out next month. And maybe, assuming we don't have another big outburst and people start pulling back on quarantines and everything, we may see things start to loosen up a little bit. But as you know, now we're coming into the traditionally slow part of the year anyways.
Exactly.
After Thanksgiving, nobody does anything. So
yeah, so
it is true, but I'm also, so I know that from a lot of the people I'm talking to in the corporate world, they're like, and I know it from my personal experience, we're busier than ever. And the problem that they're finding is that they have a lot more projects that they want to do, but obviously budgets are tighter. So
yeah. Oh, budgets are way tight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, a project has been would be reduced from, 10x to 2x.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
pretty
And we're
significant.
one of the X's that's left out there. The
Exactly.
outside consultants are one of the X's that went away.
Exactly.
So Tom, why don't you take us on our classic ending?
All right. So Mary Pat,
I think I know the answer to this.
yes. We ask everyone at the end of the grilling, if you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, living or dead, and not necessarily work related, if you could just spend a day, going out for lunch, going to the museum, sitting around talking, who would that person be?
Without a doubt, it would be Browning.
Yeah.
I just miss him so much.
Yeah.
I mean, he was my work dad, and I lost him the same year I lost my actual dad. And so that was a really rough year. Browning would call me. I would probably talk to Browning more often than I talked to my own father. Because we would just, he would call and say, "Oh, have you seen this?" Or, "Hey, what do you think of that?" And, we would talk on the phone for, a half hour before we even really got to the point of the phone call.
He used to love to. I told him I always wanted to know where I was on the dialing sequence. Was I like number 6, number 7? He would call people from his car on his way in from up in the mountains down to the office in San Diego.
Yep.
I forget, he lived up around Poway or.
No, he lived in Escondido. I actually lived in Poway.
Yeah, there you go.
When we'd have a road trip, like we'd go up to the LA office or something, he'd come and pick me up.
Okay.
And then he would threaten my kids with a Vulcan death grip if they weren't good. And my kids would just look at him like, "Okay, who is this guy? Why is he threatening us?"
I used to get the same thing. He'd call me a couple times a week if he was in country, which of course, as you know, was rare.
Traveling with him
Yeah.
was insane. I mean, I would, he forgot that, like I occasionally would wear heels and he's like, "Hey, if we hurry, we could make this earlier flight." And I'd be like, "Can I take my shoes off while we run through the airport?" I mean, because I had to run to keep up with him. It was crazy.
Yeah.
He was a road warrior.
Yep. Well, he loved it. I think he liked flying. He liked the travel. Some of us do not. I'm not so much a fan. If I can get there by train, I'm eminently happy. Airplane, not so much. But
still, I don't understand the physics of. I still don't get the physics of how that thing stays up there. But that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
No, I would get on a plane with him and all of the flight attendants would know, "Hey, hi, how you doing? Haven't seen you, in a couple weeks."
Yeah.
I never flew so much where the flight attendants knew who I was. I think I knew one flight attendant and, and that was because I knew them from someplace else, not because I flew all the time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I missed him, especially every year around this time. It was, of course, the time he passed, but also ILTA, which was, one of the regular times. We would usually see each other in person at Legal Tech in New York, and then ILTA wherever it might be later on. And occasionally, maybe a couple times a year, I'd get into San Diego, and then we'd always go over to have fish and chips at some place over on Point Loma. He had some favorite place where we just had to go.
Market.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. I was there several times with him.
Yeah, that was always, "Oh, you're coming in. All right. Let me know when you're ready for lunch. We'll go over to the fish market." Yeah. So I was, I don't know if you've been down there, but I was in San Diego back in December, and that whole downtown along the wharf has completely changed. The port bought all that property.
Since I've been down there.
Oh yeah. What was the restaurant down on the Italian restaurant right there on the,
Anthony's?
yeah, that's gone. I was going to say the port bought that property, but the port always owned all that property.
All the
Oh,
property
yeah,
already.
Yeah, and they redeveloped it. There's now
Okay.
several, upscale little bistros. There used to be that really kind of divey place next to the ferry landing.
Mhm.
That's gone. Anthony's is gone. It's all
Oh my goodness.
everything's been developed, and all those empty parking lots that were right there.
Yeah.
One of them had a golf driving range. Those are all condos now. All of them.
Oh
It's wall to
no.
wall condos. Yeah, yeah. That you would not recognize the harbor side of the San Diego port right now because it's been
Oh my
completely
goodness.
transformed. Yeah, yeah.
I'm not
Not-
sure if
and,
that's a good thing. I mean,
uh,
I don't know where
yeah.
all the people that get on a cruise there park if all those parking lots are gone because that's what they counted. That's was their
Yeah.
bread and butter.
Somebody told me that they had remote lots and they had little shuttles and,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's just a completely different thing. So it was interesting. I just remember oftentimes Browning would call me from his office and he would have his binoculars and be reporting to me on the ships that were pulling in. Oh, there's two carriers just came in. I don't know why they
Absolutely.
even parked two carriers. Don't they remember Pearl Harbor? You can't park two carriers next to each other. Come on.
He had references for everything.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Great guy. I do horribly miss him. I have his picture right here on the desk next to me because I especially when I'm about to lose my temper and yell at somebody. I always think, what would Browning do? How would Browning handle this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole time I knew him, I think I saw him lose his temper like twice.
Oh yeah.
But the
It's
times he
very
did,
rare, but
yeah,
boy, when he lost, I mean, very
Yeah.
long fuse, but if that
Yeah.
sucker got lit and didn't get put out,
yeah.
look out.
Look out.
He was not
What-
going to put up with stuff.
One of the vendors who was the source of his wrath, I don't know if it involved you or not. Browning felt that this vendor was being disrespectful to some of the staff at the
Mhm.
San Diego office, and the vendor still talks about it. This happened maybe 15 years ago. The
Mhm.
guy said, "All I remember is the door opened up and this guy came storming in, and he
Mhm.
used every four-letter word I have ever heard and a whole bunch I'd never heard before." I said, "Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Navy guy,
I swear like a
you know,
sailor if you needed to.
yeah." And he used to call it his evil twin Skippy.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yep.
Skippy
Absolutely.
came out today. Skippy came and made a visit today.
Right.
Skippy was not well known. Wasn't seen a lot, but boy, when he got on the scene, look out.
Yeah.
This particular vendor rep, he's works with somebody else now, but
Mhm.
he still, when I see him at a show, he still talks about it. I mean,
Oh.
literally, yeah. Skippy made a big impression on him.
I bet.
Well,
Yeah,
Mary
so
Pat,
he would definitely be the person I'd want to spend. I would love
that's
to spend
awesome.
a day with him.
yeah, that's
Great.
yeah.
Well, with that, I think we have to wrap up. Rocky, I know you have some things to take care of today, and we appreciate Mary Pat you taking the time to do this
Oh,
first thing in the
absolutely.
morning your time. You can go back to sleep now.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
bedtime.
Sorry for waking you up.
That's
But
right.
Thank you so much for joining us. And
Absolutely.
Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. We'll see all of you next time on the eDiscovery channel. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.